Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Yes, welcome to Stillman and Company here on the 440 Sports Network on YouTube at Stillman and Co. Like and subscribe. We always tell the people, get out there, like and subscribe. We are back in the U.S. of A, baby. That's right, back at the home studio as always. We call it the Forest Hill Studios now, which is nicer than some other studios here in the Nashville area. And Mr. Jackson Reese is back at preschool after his hand incident. And so we are rolling along. Let me just say, though, as people pile in here for the YouTube show and everything else, that I know there's a lot of geopolitical drama as far as Canada is concerned in the United States, and tariffs and commercials and all and out shit talking, which there's always been, a lot of that between Canada and the United States. I freaking love going up to Toronto. I do. It's an incredible city. I remember talking to TD about it last year, and TD was like, is it really that good of a city? I'm like, yes. I'm like, you need to go, whenever the Mets play Toronto, TD, you need to go up to Toronto. It is awesome. And so I had another great time. We went to game 2 of the World Series. We had great seats. We had a blast. And the big thing about it was Lindsay's dad had never been to a World Series game. Lindsay's brother had never been. So it's the making memories of it that was pretty exciting for all 4 of us to go to the game Saturday, even though they got beat. Toronto, though, I love it. We got to figure out a Toronto studio, which shouldn't be that difficult, in all honesty, for us to figure out. Now, we are back in the U.S. of A., and we got a lot to talk about as far as the Tennessee Titans are concerned. 1 week until the NFL's trade deadline. But as of yesterday, the Tennessee Titans have thrown the for sale sign into the front yard, and they are letting everybody know, even though they already let everybody know, they are letting everybody know that if you need a piece and you need a solid but not great NFL player, call the Titans. Everything is for sale, according to the team, with the exception of Cam Ward-Simmons, which I think is a little misguided if you actually want to build the team, but that's okay. Yesterday, after the Roger McCreery trade, there were 3 reactions. Now, that was the first, was the one we had yesterday, the one you had yesterday, the one that pretty much everybody had yesterday, which was the mass opinion, which is the right opinion, which was what they got in return. A 6th round, 5th round pick swap, a day 3 pick swap for Roger McCreery. That's not good enough. That is a shocking lack of value for an NFL starting corner. And that's the opinion that most people had yesterday. But there were 2 other opinions that I heard that I'd like to address. And a lot of these came from the people that always think the Titans can do no wrong. The people that once they hire a new general manager, it's like, let Rand cook. He's the best. Trust me. Oh my God, Alec Iomanor, he could be a number 1 receiver. I'm like, you do realize the going rate for a number 1 receiver, like the going rate, not the money, but like what we consider to be a number 1 receiver, that is Jamar Chase. And after 2 games, these people are like, Alec Iomanor can be. He is not going to be Jamar Chase. I like Jim Ray DK. He's not going to be Jamar Chase. But these people had these wacky opinions. The first was, this is how the Titans are going to get better. They are investing in the future, and this is how you get better. And that's better than letting Roger McCreery walk for nothing when you weren't going to re-sign him. And I'm sorry, but they didn't get an actual pick back in the deal. They improved their worst 6th round pick to be their original 5th round pick. but they didn't get a pick back in the deal. If you go into the draft with 8 picks and you don't make any trades, you get 8 players. You go into this, you lose Roger McCreery for the rest of the season. Granted, your team sucks, but you lose Roger McCreery for the rest of the season. You don't get a player back in return. If you went into the draft yesterday with 6 picks, now you're looking at 7 picks. So I'm like, when you just have the same amount of guys and now you lose a guy that apparently you weren't going to re-sign, now you have to replace him. And you're not replacing your roster with core players on day 3 of the NFL draft. That usually does not happen. I went back when the Titans were good from 2019 to 2021, when they were competing for the Super Bowl, AFC championship games, AFC South titles, number 2 offense in the NFL, 2,000-yard rusher, number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs. When they were that team, how many of their core pieces were day 3 picks? If you want to get technical, Ryan Tannehill was a day 3 pick. They traded a 4th rounder to Miami. But in all seriousness, Ryan Tannehill was the 12th pick in the draft. But they did trade a day 3 pick for Tannehill. If you want to get technical. Outside of that, who? David Long was a 6th round pick. Amani Hooker really hadn't become a starter until the very end there. He was a 4th round pick. But most of those guys, Lawan, Conklin, Henry, AJ, Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons, those guys are 1st and 2nd round picks. Christian Fulton was a 2nd round pick. Kevin Byard was a 3rd round pick. Nate Davis was a 3rd round pick. So, I mean, again, they improved a 6th to a 5th. It's better than nothing, Jared. Is it? You didn't get an actual player in return for a starting NFL corner. On the scale of moving the needle, that is about as big of a transaction as switching from ranch dressing to light ranch dressing. You go, buddy. If the Titans yesterday had gotten a standalone pick, i.e., a 4th, then you could argue that they traded away Roger McCreery for 4 seasons of contractual control of a future asset, or an extra trade chip that could be used to acquire a veteran player that another team wants to get rid of next year that you want, so that you don't have to fight the market for it. You know, every time we talk about Sam Darnold, somebody will say, why would Sam Darnold want to play here? Well, you could have traded for his rights and used the tag on him, or used the tag as leverage to get him to sign an extension here. And by the way, the reason why a lot of guys will want to play here is because of the money. It's the reason why Calvin Ridley signed to play here. The money. It's the reason why coaches are going to want to come here. The money. It's the reason why Mike Borgonzi wanted to leave the Chiefs to be the general manager here when he has to answer to Chad Brinker because of the money. So these day 3 picks can be used as either lottery tickets for 4 years of contractual control. They can, if there's a player that maybe is a UDFA type, but you really like them, you can use that pick on him. Special teams, kickers. If you don't want to have to compete with anybody else for a kicker you like, you can use a 6th rounder on a guy. I mean, there is a value to a day 3 pick, but thinking you're going to rebuild your team off of day 3 picks is ridiculous. And again, when teams are moving off of players this upcoming season, that might be the target for the Titans. Because if a guy is on a team and he's a solid player, but he's coming off of an injury, but you think the injury's behind him, and you think, you know what, he's due $9 million this year. If we were to go out and sign a corner of his caliber, it would cost us 22 because we'd have to give him a signing bonus, and we don't have to give it. Fine. Deal that extra 6th away. But you don't have that because you didn't get an extra pick back in the deal for McCreary. And I'll use the example of Green Bay. moving off of Jair Alexander this offseason. Well, if they move off of that kind of player and you think there's something there, and there always are guys there that teams are looking to move who have hefty salaries that I'm telling you could come in today and be better than players you have right now. Jalen Ramsey. Last year, Miami was willing to do whatever it takes to get rid of Jalen Ramsey. If you had called up and offered a 6th-round pick, they would have done it. Jonnu Smith, same thing. So these extra day 3 picks, they do have some value. But moving up on day 3, that has no value to me. So I'm sorry. I mean, you got nothing yesterday. You got a day 3 pick swap, which is the second time this season you've gotten a day 3 pick swap for a starting corner. That's not good enough. So this is how they're going to rebuild the team, by moving up in the 6th round, by dealing a starting corner in the 6th round to move up to the 5th round, and that's how they're going to rebuild the team. Give me a break. The second take I heard that I thought was ridiculous is this signals the Titans are in for a total rebuild. What? Huh? That's not a total. Trading a starting corner with no term after this year is not the signal of a rebuild. That is the signal of, we don't think we can win this year, which you've already fired your coach, and hate to break it to you, no shit. You can't win this year. That is not a total rebuild. In fact, the Titans are telling everybody they're not in it for a total rebuild, because the one move they can make that would say total rebuild, and it is the move that I am in favor of, would be trading Jeffrey Simmons. Trading Jeffrey Simmons is saying, we're not good this year, we're not going to be good next year, and we're probably not going to be good the year after that. So instead of utilizing Simmons and what he gives us, we are going to deal that away in order to get at least 5 years of contractual control of a 1st-round player. Now, I'd like a 1st and a 3rd for Simmons. That's what I would set the price at. And if you offered me a 1st and a 3rd today, I'd get in the car and I'd drive him to whatever city it is. I don't care if we traded him to Nova Scotia. 1st and a 3rd, see ya. Because to me, I look at that, and that's 9 years of contractual control for top 100 players. And then you can deal your 1st-rounder back because you got the other 1st-rounder, and there's a lot you can do. That's the way I view it. That is a rebuild. But the Titans have said, we're not going to do that. When the Dolphins went total rebuild, the tank for Tua season, they traded away Laramie Tunsil and Minka Fitzpatrick in their primes. This just says, hey, the Titans are sweeping the porch. And if there's anything you want, everything must go. Go ahead and get it. But it's also a sign that they are clearly unwilling to hit the button on a total rebuild. So, number one, don't pretend to give them credit for saying that they're rebuilding, or for thinking that they're rebuilding, or that it's not a rebuild. If you are rebuilding, you trade Jeffrey Simmons. If you are committed to rebuilding, you trade Jeffrey Simmons. And I want to know the why they're not willing to trade Jeffrey Simmons. Now, I know what they'll say. They'll say the reason they're not willing to trade Jeffrey Simmons is because we view Jeff as a core piece of this team for many years to come. But 5 years from now, Jeff will be 33 years old. You think Jeff Simmons is going to be dominating the NFL 5 years from now at 33 years old? You, by the way, will have to give Jeff Simmons another contract by the time we get to 5 years from now. 3 years from now, you'll have to give him another contract, and he'll be north of 30. Do you think you're going to be good this year? Do you think you're going to be good next year? So that logic doesn't really play with me. So I want to know if the reason why you're not willing to go for the total rebuild right here is because either A, the owner has just said, don't trade him. I like him. I don't want to trade him, and I do irrational shit, so don't trade him. Or if, and I think with Chad Brinker, I would not be surprised if this was reality. They're more worried about trying to be good next year to protect their jobs than they are worried about doing their jobs this year. The GM told me, he said, as a GM, you got two choices. You can either do your job or you can protect your job. And he said, when I was general manager of the Titans, I always tried to do my job. And I think when it comes to Simmons, if you want a full-blown rebuild, if you actually want to rebuild the team and you want more than day 3 pick swaps, you have to trade Simmons. And you're going to be worse tomorrow when you trade Simmons. And you're going to be worse next year when you trade Simmons. But that's what it's going to take to rebuild the team. I've watched, not this latest Cowboys documentary, though I did watch that, but I watched an ESPN 30 for 30 short that came out years ago. When ESPN Plus first started rolling, they put all the 30 for 30 catalogs onto ESPN Plus. And I think I had COVID or something, and I was stuck at home, and I watched all these 30 for 30 shorts. And one was on the Herschel Walker trade. And Jimmy Johnson, and this was Jimmy only, so there was no Jerry, so there was no, Jerry horseshit, but it was Jimmy kind of recalling how that all went down. And Jimmy said one day he was jogging, and he said they were so bad, that Cowboy team, that he was willing to trade any player on the team to get better, including Michael Irvin, whom he recruited out of high school. He said, I'd trade anybody. I'll trade any of them. And he said, I brought up the idea of what if we traded Herschel Walker? And the offensive coaches looked at me like I was crazy. That's the only player we've got. But Jimmy knew, if I'm going to build this team back, Herschel's not doing us any good right now. He's not going to do us any good. So we need to trade him and build for the future. Not to say that Jeffrey Simmons is going to give you the Herschel Walker return, but Jeffrey Simmons is the only good player you've got. And so if you want to rebuild for the future, if draft, develop, retain is your real mantra, then you should be considering a full rebuild. And you should be considering trading Jeffrey Simmons, but not the Titans. The Titans are trying to sell people on Chigakonkwo and Arden Key. And then again, the Titans look like suckers because they're trading starting corners for day 3 pick swaps. They're not even getting individual standalone picks in return. So give me a break with this. Hey, this is the sign of a full rebuild that they traded Roger McCreery. No, it's not. A total rebuild involves Simmons, period. The same way Miami's total rebuild involved Laramie Tunsil. The same way that Houston's total rebuild involved Deshaun Watson. Granted, that was a little peculiar of a situation, but that's how you rebuild. The Cleveland Browns are not rebuilding. You don't pay a pass rusher $40 million who you can get multiple first rounders for and is demanding a trade if you're trying to rebuild. So I don't want to hear that, well, this is a sign of a rebuild. No, it's not. But what all of this signals to me, and this is what bothers me the most about the Titans being good in the future. We know they're going to be bad tomorrow, and we know there's a pretty good chance that in the immediate future they're going to be pretty bad. But I think we all have hope, or we want to have hope, that they'll be good in the future. And here's what bothers me. It's that if they have a plan, which they have not properly communicated to anybody, if they have a plan, it seems to me like it is a terrible plan. What they're going to try to do, I guess this is their plan. I don't know. Again, they haven't communicated their plan to anybody, but it looks like their plan is the idea, we're going to trade away everyone for anything that we can get. Then we're going to go into free agency next year, and we're going to sign a bunch of Xavier Woods-type players because Amy's not going to want to pay the big bonuses she paid a couple of years ago while the stadium is being built, and she's probably soured on free agency because her handpicked choices made a bunch of bad decisions, And then they are going to draft 1 first-round player next year, 1 second-round player next year, and maybe 2 third-round players next year if they trade down in the second round and pick up an extra third for the sake of trading down like they did this year. So unless they go out in next year's draft and they pull a 2019 haul, Simmons, A.J. Brown, Nate Davis, I don't see any way that they're realistically much better around Cam Ward next season. Yes, the coaching might be better, but the coaching's not going to be that much better. Again, 1 first-round player, 1 second-round player, maybe 1 third-round player, maybe 2, because they'll, again, trade down maybe in the second. That's not enough to rebuild your team. I mean, you just traded away a second-round player, and you got a pick swap on day 3 in return. So draft, develop, retain sounds good because that's what people will tell you their plan is. If I were to say, Chad Brinker, what is your plan? Chad Brinker would say, draft, develop, retain. Well, they drafted Roger McCreery. They developed Roger McCreery, and they just gave him away for a bag of footballs. They drafted Jarvis Brownley Jr. They kind of developed Jarvis Brownley Jr., and they gave him away for a bag of footballs. It's not really draft, develop, retain now, is it? Well, I want 30 picks over the next 3 years, and I want 12 in the top 100. Well, you had 3 last year. Right now, you have 3 this year, and you have 3 next year. That's 9. So where are these picks coming from? Where is draft, develop, retain coming from? Sounds good. Sounds like a great slogan, like a bumper sticker. But it doesn't erase the fact that unless you add a bunch of extra picks to your collection, then you have to nail every single one of your picks, which the best general managers do about 50% of the time. And that is without even knowing whether or not Cam Ward is the guy. And again, put me on the side of people that think he is not. And by the way, there's really not a lot of people in Nashville outside of me and the national media. The national media gives Cam the biggest pass there ever was. There's not a lot of people that are willing just to say right now, I don't buy it with Cam. I don't see it. I don't think he's good enough. And I don't think that he's going to have a good enough cast around him. And I don't think he's going to have a good enough organization around him. And I don't think he's going to fix the holes in his game. I don't think Cam's going to be the guy. I think what you saw in Mariota last night on Monday Night Football, that's going to be Cam. Best case scenario, maybe. Which takes me back to my biggest issue with yesterday's trade. And that is that it feels like Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi don't know what they're doing. And that's a problem. And by the way, the idea of Brinker and Borgonzi not knowing what they're doing, whether it's Brinker who doesn't know what he's doing, or Borgonzi who doesn't know what he's doing, or both of them together not knowing what they're doing, the truth is the results of what we're seeing, their actions, are telling us that that 2-person committee, and it might be bigger, I don't know, they don't know what they're doing. And there was another story yesterday out of Titanland that reared its ugly head that kind of, in my opinion, proves that these guys don't know what they're doing. But first, I want to tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, and then we will get to that story. You know, I absolutely love Hiller. They take great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. Hiller has been in business since 1990, and I am telling you, when it comes to Hiller, they are the best. And I say this because I use them at my home. And I'm telling you, you should use them at your home too. They have 100% satisfaction. Of happy, will be or the service is free. If a customer isn't pleased with the work performed, they will make it right. They are professional, experienced, and trustworthy with technicians that come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. That's true. I can back that up. Care is their core value, where they believe that when they care about others, everybody wins. They'll take care of every customer on the job every time with 100% satisfaction. Of happy you'll be, or the service is free. Learn more at happyhiller.com. That's where I go to book my Hiller service. Do the same. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud sponsor of the Nashville Predators, the Vanderbilt Commodores, and the Tennessee Volunteers. Hiller, call the Happy Face truck today. Okay, that story that that reared its ugly head yesterday when it comes to the Titans front office and this belief that I'm not sure they know what they're doing. So this story was brought to my attention this morning. Apparently it came out yesterday from Easton Freeze at AtoZ Sports. And it doesn't bother me from the implications that Amy Adams Strunk is a bad owner, or Amy Adams Struck, S-T-R-U-C-K, as Roger McCreery called her last night in his thank you to the Titans fans and to the Titans community. He's called them the Struck family. Unbelievable. But apparently Amy Adams Strunk, and this doesn't bother me, like that it's going to cost her more money. That doesn't bother me. But the why bothers me. So apparently she's going to have to pay off this entire heinous Callahan coaching staff. And the why she'll have to pay them off is hilarious and depressing. According to Easton Freeze at AtoZ Sports, quote, sources tell AtoZ Sports that Callahan's primary lieutenants, offensive coordinator Nick Holtz and defensive coordinator Denard Wilson, signed 3-year contracts before the 2024 season. So they'll be on the payroll through January 2027. First of all, stop there. I absolutely love the fact, and I'm laughing my ass off at the idea that Nick Holtz signed a 3-year contract to be offensive coordinator, and they won't even let him call the plays. Oh, shit. Easton continues, quote, sources also confirmed the vast majority of the rest of Callahan's coaching staff, if not all of them, signed 2-year deals in 2024. So that means that when Callahan hired his assistant coaches that were not the 2 coordinators, but when he hired everybody else, it was a 1-year deal for 2024 and a 1-year deal for 2025. So a 2-year deal that would end this season. But Easton says, quote, during this past offseason, they were all given extensions, at least through January of 2027, alongside of the coordinators. So let me get this straight. And when it comes to Nick Holtz getting a 3-year deal, you can pin that on Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan. They're not here anymore. It's easy to blame them. Go ahead and do it. Whatever. Blame them. It's all their fault. That's fine. But you can't blame Rand Carthon for signing the Callahan assistant coaches to contract extensions for next season. So I'm trying to figure this out. The Titans retained Brian Callahan as head coach, immediately publicly put him on the hot seat by saying, we're going to hold him accountable, which you didn't even have to publicly put him on the hot seat because he won 3 games last year. And then they extended his assistant coaches. So you have a head coach. You hope this guy is the next Vince Lombardi. Every time you hire a coach, you hope he's the next Sean McVay, the next Kyle Shanahan, the next Andy Reid. You hope this guy is your coach for 13 years. You know it's very likely that he won't be, but you hope. So when you hire him, you've hired him because you want him to build his staff. He won you over in the interview. You give him the resources to be successful. Fine. But after the first season, when you win 3 games, this is the NFL, baby. Like, you're on the hot seat. And they extended his coaching staff? For the umpteenth time, Chad Brinker, please explain this. He won't. But please explain this. You're the one who's in charge, right? Because you basically took the owner's money and lit it on fire when you didn't need to. These assistant coaches all want 2-year deals, 3-year deals. Everybody wants longer contracts. But did they really think, the assistant coaches, that they deserved extensions after they won 3 games the year before? And could Brinker and Borgonzi really have thought, Brian is a good coach. I know we won 3 games last year, but he really is a good coach. And we want to make sure that these assistants don't go anywhere because they were so good last year and they had nothing to do with the fact that we won 3 games. So let's go ahead and extend them and give them a bunch of money. And it hit me that whether it's Chad Brinker or Mike Borgonzi or Bozo the Clown or whoever is actually calling the shots over there, they have to explain away pretty much every move because I'm not sure I understand what they're really trying to do. If you had a head coach on the hot seat, why would you extend his existence? Well, we don't want the assistant coaches to worry. They should worry. They won 3 games last year. In fact, a lot of them are lucky that Brian Callahan is such a pushover and such a nice guy that he didn't fire them after last year, because most coaches who win 3 games and survive and are on the hot seat do change the coaching staff. And I'm sorry to Brinker or Borgonzi or whoever, you want to pray to hope the Titans are going to get better. You can't blame J-Rob for this. You can't blame Mike Vrabel for this. You can't blame Rand Carthon, and you can't blame Brian Callahan. The easy targets, you can't blame them for this. And it kind of feels like every single move that the Titans make requires some sort of big picture explanation. Why did you not get a standalone pick for Roger McCreery? And if a day 3 pick swap is the best that was out there, why not wait until next week to see if somebody's desperate enough to give you an actual pick in exchange for Roger McCreery? Why trade Jarvis Brownley Jr. as starting second-year corner for a bag of footballs? Why extend the coaching staff? I didn't even notice this or pay attention to this until Paul pointed it out after the game on Sunday. But apparently Mike McCoy lets the locker room open up so the reporters go in and talk to the players before they talk to the head coach after the game. Now, in most college and NFL circles, my understanding is the head coach is the first one to talk, and the head coach wants to be the first one to talk. Mike McCoy was asked why he let the players talk first, and he was like, that's what they told me to do. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. I found that very odd, by the way. That's not normally what happens with NFL teams. So, Chad Brinker, please explain that one to me. There are personnel moves inside the building. We've talked about Anthony Pastrana and Brent Akers and Robbie Bourne and guys like that that have been there forever, that Brinker, boom, immediately kicked out of there. I'd like an explanation. Why is it Brent Akers' fault that the team sucks so bad? And the more swings at the dish that these guys get, the more I'm convinced they cannot cut it in the big leagues. Every single decision they make requires some serious mental gymnastics to understand why they would do it. And the McCreary deal was another one. And the extending of the assistant coaches, that's another one. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get anything that these guys really do for the most part. Again, they're like draft, develop, retain. And then they ship out Jarvis Brownlee. What? These guys draft Cam Ward. The general manager says you have to have a plan. The most important thing that I learned from Kansas City when it came to Mahomes was you have to have a plan. And, we watched him every day in practice, and it was hard not to play him. But the plan was Alex Smith. So that was the plan. And then they draft Cam, and there is no plan. These guys have some serious explaining to do because I can't explain the moves and the reasons and everything else they're doing. Why did you extend the assistant? You should have fired half of those guys. And even if they're all great coaches, which I'm starting to believe that they're not, but even if they're all great coaches, you won 3 games last year. 3. And the only guys that changed, Justin Outen, he left because I think he went to Seattle. He left because he was a holdover from Vrabel. Chris Harris, defensive coach, he left, holdover from Vrabel. His contract was up. He wanted to go somewhere else. And the special teams coordinator, who was a fucking moron. And Callahan just could not see that. That's it. and then you extended everybody else? So now Amy's going to have to fire them and pay them more? Again, I don't care that Amy has to pay more. That's her money, and you put these dumbasses in charge. You deserve it. But at the same time, what the fuck? Like, what were you thinking? Good reporting, by the way, from Easton Freeze on that one. But what were you fucking thinking? Now, one last thing on the Brinker and Borgonzi front. And I do think that this is one that maybe I should have made a bigger deal about at the time. But it feels like the Titans are going to have a hard time living down the Jarvis Brownley Jr. trade. Because apparently this came from the SNY podcast from the locker room of the Jets after they picked up their first win that was sealed by Jarvis Brownley, which ironically actually helps the Titans if the Titans are going to get the number 1 pick. In the end, if the Jets were to win another game and they were to go 2-16 or 2-15, and the Titans were to go 1-16, and the Titans were to get the number 1 pick, you could argue Jarvis Brownley Jr. helped them go from number 2 to number 1, which is far more valuable than the 7th, 6th pick swap with which they acquired Jarvis Brownley with. But this is Zach Rosenblatt on the SNY postgame podcast talking about Brownley after the game on Sunday and what Brownley has meant and been for the Jets in general. Take a look.
Yeah, I just don't understand. There had to be something that nobody knows about with the Titans. Like, I do not get why you get rid of a guy on a rookie contract who is clearly this good. Just to give it a little behind the scenes of the locker room. So the locker room is wrapping up, and Tom Rock and I from Newsday are kind of waiting to talk to Brownlee because he had that last play. He's the last one in the locker room. Everyone else in the media already left. He's like taking his time putting on his jewelry and stuff, which is kind of funny. But at one point he asked, what time is it? And we say it's like 4:57. And he's like, oh, great, so I still have time to go watch the Titans lose. Like, this is the he has that kind of edge to him, though. Like, you and I.
Good. You need guys like that. That's a dog.
So
go back to Jamal Adams. That's a dog.
Remember you and I talking about that earlier in the season, probably before he really started playing a role, where we're like, who is the guy in this defense that's going to like the energy giver? You know, like Jermaine Johnson, you could say was one. He was hurt at the time. But other than that, you didn't have like a C.J. Mosley, a guy that was going to rally the troops and really just like set the tone. And it seems like he's that guy. Like, he has a lot of confidence. He says all the right things. He's really fun to talk to, just as like a guy in the locker room, and he's really thoughtful, and he loves being a Jet already. So I think he's a guy that he could be like a culture-changing type play. Not in terms of not saying he's going to be a superstar or anything, but just the way he plays football can be a really big boon for Aaron Glenn as he tries to find like his guys.
Okay. Whoa. So I haven't been keeping up with Jarvis Brownley with the Jets. I was watching the end of that game, on Sunday with the Bengals and the Jets, because it was the only good game that kind of went down to the wire there from the early slate. And when they were like, incomplete, and it was broken up by Jarvis Brownley Jr., I was like, oh, shit. I was like, well, thank you, Jarvis Brownley Jr. But I actually looked it up at Pro Football Focus. Jarvis Brownley's defensive grade with the New York Jets. And remember, the New York Jets suck. So for everybody out there, because this happens anytime that a Titan player or somebody the Titans could have had goes and plays somewhere else and does well, they say, well, he wouldn't have been doing that here. Sam Darnold wouldn't have been doing that here. It's all because of Minnesota. That's why. And then he goes to Seattle, and Minnesota stinks, and he goes to Seattle, plays well. Well, he wouldn't do that here. It's all because of Seattle. Well, he wouldn't do that here. Jackson Dart wouldn't do that here. Yeah. Boy, so sad we're not as well constructed as the Giants. The Jets, who stink and are stupid and have a bad owner and have a rookie general manager and a rookie coach. Jarvis Brownley Jr.'s defensive grade with the Jets this year through 4 games is 75.0. Jarvis Brownley's coverage grades, 77.9. In Tennessee, Jarvis Brownley's grade was 59.0. So somebody needs to explain to me how it is that Jarvis Brownley Jr. has played much, much, much better for the New York Jets than he played for the Tennessee Titans. Also, it should be noted, the penalties, the big issue that everyone was worried about when it came to Jarvis Brownlee, because he committed 3 in the first game and he committed all those penalties last year. Guess how many penalties Jarvis Brownley Jr. has committed through 4 games with the New York Jets? 0. So 0 penalties committed in 4 games with the Jets. And what I was told when Brownlee got traded was, hey, he was very unprofessional. He lacked discipline, and the coaching staff had tried everything they could, and they just felt like he was never going to become disciplined, and he was never going to listen, and he was never going to become professional, and he was never going to. And he goes to the Jets, and here's the Jets beat reporter saying, let me tell you, this Jarvis Brownlee, I don't know what they were thinking when they traded him for a bag of peanuts to the Jets. I don't know what Tennessee was thinking. But this guy has been a great addition. He's been great in the locker room. He's got the potential to be a culture-setting guy. He's great. And I told you that when they drafted him, I called the athletic director at Louisville, and I said, give me the scoop on this Jarvis Brownlee Jr., because the Titans just traded for him, and I want to know, like, is he any good? Is he a good kid? And he said, he's good. He said he's tough and physical, and he will hit people. You just got to keep him healthy. He said, for us, we struggled keeping him healthy. Then after the Titans traded, I called him again, and I help me out here, because I'm hearing he was unprofessional. There's 2 sides of the story. He said, look, when Jarvis was he a college kid? Yeah, he was a college kid. But he's like, there are guys I want on my team, and there are guys I don't want on my team. And Jarvis Brownley Jr. is somebody, and this is the athletic director of Louisville, who said Jarvis Brownley, and this is a guy who, when he was a graduate assistant that was helping out with them hosting the NCAA track and field tournaments, and I was a manager for the women's basketball team, this guy was like an older brother to me. This guy would not bullshit me on something like this. And if he said, hey, that guy's a terrible person, I just wouldn't tell you. That's it. I mean, this guy tells me like, hey, yeah, Scott Satterfield's about to go take the Cincinnati job ahead of time. So I'm telling you that if he thought Brownlee was bad news, he would have said it. And he's like, there are guys that I want on my team, and there are guys that I don't want on my team. Just from a personality standpoint. He's like, Jarvis Brownley Jr. is a guy I want on my team. And so, again, I'm sorry, but you need to explain this one. It's one thing for you to say, yeah, he was just, he just didn't have a lot of discipline. And he was a bad locker room guy. It wasn't a good fit. It wasn't fine. But then don't let him go to somewhere else, start playing great, and then be Mr. Locker Room. At least with AJ, when the Titans traded AJ, there were injury concerns for AJ Brown. You can say there weren't, there were. There were injury concerns for AJ and the big contract, and there were the Twitter fingers, and there was the attitude, and they were trying to be the Patriots, and AJ still got an attitude. I mean, he's been a distraction all season long in that Philadelphia locker room. When they win, he's unhappy he doesn't get the ball enough. Like, there were valid reasons to be concerned with AJ. Having a hard time on the Brownlee one. I'm having a hard time getting there. And again, he was a starting caliber corner. And the other guy starting allegedly shot up a car dealership last year. So I keep saying every time these guys come up to bat, they keep showing us that they don't have a clue. And I need some explaining for this stuff. I think I told this story on the postgame show, but I'll just tell it again because I think this is so important. And not that I would ever have any access to this or they would ever, show us this or anything like that. But I want to know what it is these guys are presenting to Amy and Amy's committee, Adolfo Birch and Burke Nihill. And I want to know what they're presenting that gets them these jobs. Chad Brinker was the assistant general manager. What the fuck did he show them or explain to them that makes them think he's qualified to run a football team? And I was talking to Lindsey's brother the other night when we were headed to the Jays game, and he is a big-time executive for a Canadian hotel chain. It's a very successful one, very high-end. I mean, all over Canada, some in Seattle in the United States, and just all over Canada with these high-end hotels. And I said to him, because he asked me, he's like, why do the Titans suck so bad? And I was like, well, the owner's kind of a kook, and she hires all these morons. And when these guys have these press conferences the first time, they always sound good, but then they start working, and the doing doesn't match with the talking. Like what they said they were going to do and what they actually do doesn't actually add up. I'm like, have you had experiences like that when you've hired people, you know? And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, in fact, in our interview process, the way that we do it now is we sit down with somebody, we interview them, and then we say, okay, here's the problem. We now need you to solve it. And they solve us the problem. And then we can go back in and punch up the Excel documents, and we can literally watch in live time how they solve the problem that we put in front of them to see if their thinking matches our thinking. I'm like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Do you think Rand Carthon did that when he interviewed for the job to be general manager? Like that he sat down and said, okay, here's our plan. Here's the assessment of the roster. Here's who we feel like. Here's what we want to do under Mike Vrabel. Here's what we want to. Or do you think he just said things that Amy liked? Or that the league office said you should hire this guy? What has Brinker done? What has Brinker done? Like, what did he show them that says, hey, guys, I can solve your problem? I know I've been here for 3 years, and I know that in the 3 years I've been here, everything has gotten worse exponentially every year, but I can solve your problems. Here's how. I don't have any idea. And I have to tell you, I don't know, I don't know how culpable Mike Borgonzi is in some of the decisions that have been made around here this season. But if Mike Borgonzi was stupid enough to risk his career as the assistant general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, where every year you're going to be up for a general manager job, to take the Titans GM job where he reports to Chad Brinker, he can't be that smart either. So again, I will tell you, I don't understand this. I'm not going to try to understand this. I mean, this team, I just don't know where, they do it. I don't know where this comes. I do not know where these guys get these jobs from. And then everybody tells me to give them a chance. And then I give them chances, and they trade away starting corners for day 3 pick swaps. And I'm like, that's what morons do. That's what morons do. I don't get it. I do not understand. And the worst part is she doesn't care. You know, I think that she thinks Chad Brinker knows what he's doing, and that Chad Brinker, hey, you trust in Chad, because Chad Brinker, he knows. Chad Brinker, he gets it. And it's like, does he? I have a hard time with that. So I do want to talk about the college coaching cycle, which apparently is in the middle of October. I mean, we talk about impatience and things going crazy. In the middle of October, when it comes to the college coaching search, I mean, we are almost not full bore, but this is like December stuff in October. The way it usually happens is coaches start to get fired. This is in a normal year. Coaches get fired around November 1st. And then, we're going to let him coach the last game, and he'll coach through the bowl game. But then and then December is where some guys get fired, and then other jobs come open, and the carousel really starts to go and everything else. And tomorrow, we were going to do this today, but we'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have the the full-blown coaching carousel. Well, I'll make predictions as to where people go, and we'll even get a little carousel music in there for the people. Okay. But with college football this year, it is if you were supposed to win and you didn't win, get the fuck out. And Brian Kelly is the latest victim at LSU. Now, I appreciate LSU because LSU doesn't hide who they are. LSU is the New York Yankees of the SEC under George Steinbrenner. When you managed the New York Yankees under George Steinbrenner, you knew win the World Series, Buck Showalter, or it's time to go. When you were a high-priced player for the Yankees under George Steinbrenner, you knew what the score was. And when it comes to LSU, they don't care about your background. They don't care about your personality. They don't care about how you embrace the fans. They don't care about how you kiss babies and shake hands. They care about whether or not you win. And LSU gives you the resources to win. That's how they have the NIL money to go get Paul Skeens for baseball, or how they have the money to go get Kim Mulkey for women's basketball after she had won multiple national titles at Baylor. LSU, they're the Al Davis Raiders. Just win, baby. And Brian Kelly didn't do it, and he got fired. And on top of it with Brian Kelly, he was an asshole, which, unlike Ed Orgeron, who had won a national title, made it a little less palpable. But the truth is, LSU doesn't hide who they are. LSU wants a coach who can win a national title. That's the expectation. Don't have to win it every year, but you have to win it at some point. And after losing, Brian Kelly had proven to everybody, including me, that he was never going to win a national title at LSU. And the way it works at LSU is, if you ain't going to win us a title, move on. So add LSU to the list. Penn State's on the list. Florida's on the list. UCLA is on the list. Arkansas is on the list. And there are other jobs that will come open. Kentucky will be on the list. And so before we get to the carousel tomorrow, where we start picking out who goes where, let me just make some observations before I start making predictions. Number one, Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin would be stupid to leave Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin has it made at Ole Miss. They love him, and it seems like he loves them. It seems to me that Lane Kiffin has never been happier or looked better than he does right now. He's going to get a raise no matter what happens at LSU. No matter what happens at Florida, there are so many open jobs, he's going to get a raise. And by getting a raise, but staying at Ole Miss, even with the obvious overtures from LSU and Florida, I believe Lane will only build in more currency with the fans, boosters, and administration that can help him if he stumbles down the road like he did last year when he lost to Kentucky. LSU and Florida will do whatever it takes to get Lane Kiffin because they're obsessed with winning the hire instead of making the right hire. But Lane Kiffin would be smart to just stay at Ole Miss. Last year, they lost to a bad Florida team and a bad Kentucky team. And they didn't make the playoff because of it. And people at Ole Miss still like Lane Kiffin. And this year, Ole Miss probably will make the college football playoff. But if they stumble and they don't, the people at Ole Miss will still like Lane Kiffin. You're not going to get that at LSU, and you're not going to get that at Florida. Dan Mullen won a lot at Florida. Then he slipped up. He's gone. So Lane, hear me out. Stay at Ole Miss. Get a nice little raise. You don't have to be the highest paid coach. Get a nice little bump and build in that currency with the administration and the fan base and keep doing your thing at Ole Miss. Number two, I would not, if I was an athletic director, rule out hiring James Franklin on a contract that is essentially contingent on Franklin making a small salary from the new school while Penn State still pays him the money they owe him. And the money that we would pay him, say if we're Florida, say if we're LSU, goes right to NIL. So if the pool for players is $15 million, let's just say, let's add another 8. Because we're going to pay James Franklin $1 million. Penn State will pay James the other $9 million that he'll make this year. And then we'll take that $8 million or $9 million that we're not paying him, that we would have to pay Lane Kiffin if we hired him, and we're going to get that right to the players. Because at the end of the day, if Ed Orgeron can win a national title in college football, if Larry Coker can win a national title in college football, and I'll say it, if Ryan Day can win a national title in college football, you can do it if you've got the best players. And if you're Florida or you're LSU and you've already got a huge NIL budget, and then you get to add more because Penn State fired their coach, you should take advantage of it. That might be what puts you over the top against Alabama. That might be what puts you over the top against Georgia or Tennessee. And the trade-off here for James Franklin is you get to shove it to Penn State and make them pay you what they owe you, and you don't have to go to Oklahoma State or Arkansas in order to get back into the big leagues. You get to go to LSU. You get to go to Florida. They're not going to pay you anything, but what they would have paid you, they're going to pay players. You're going to shove it to Penn State, who's going to pay you to then watch you on TV at Florida or LSU with this unbelievable roster, and maybe then you can win the big one. I don't think he can, but we'll see. But I would consider it if I was an athletic director, though James Franklin's not exactly my cup of tea. Third, the only coach who's out there that I really think would make the big name hungry fans, boosters, and administrators happy is Kenny Dillingham, the Arizona State coach. All the other guys, the Lane Kiffins, the Steve Sarkisians, the Jeff Brohms, the Clark Lees, those guys are probably not going to leave their current jobs. Dillingham might. Now, he is from Arizona State, but they pay him $5 million a year. And that's after they made the playoff last year. And the SEC knows that the Big 12 financially cannot compete with them. That if they want to pay Kenny Dillingham $12 million a year to go coach in the SEC, that Arizona State can't do anything about it. And he's young. He's Power 4 experienced. He went to the playoff. Perhaps he's very ambitious. I've always said a lot of these guys that don't have a lot of experience, the one thing that they do think is, I can do it. So Kenny Dillingham is the name that I am keeping an eye on, that I am watching, and I am saying, hey, you know what? This guy is the one who LSU, once they swing and miss on Lane or Florida or somebody, because it's going to be like between him and Eli Drinkwitz. It's like, Kenny Dillingham, you can sell yourself. You can sell your fan base, your boosters on Kenny Dillingham. I'm not sure you can sell them right now on James Franklin, even though I want to see Dillingham have more success before I just say, oh yeah, he's for sure better than Franklin. And the last little nugget when it comes to hiring coaches, because I've already heard this, when it comes to LSU and Florida, and I've already heard that, oh no, Jared, you don't know. They couldn't hire a coordinator. They want to hire a big name. Well, you might not want a coordinator. 2 of the 3 national championship winning coaches in the NIL era. So since we've started paying the players, 2 of the 3 national championship winning coaches, Kirby Smart and Ryan Day, came to be head coaches after starting off as coordinators with no prior head coaching experience. Jim Harbaugh is the other national championship winning coach in the NIL era, and he's not coming back to college football. So while LSU might want Lane Kiffin, who has that experience, Who is to say that Will Stein at Oregon isn't the next Lane Kiffin? Maybe without Lane's baggage. And I know Florida thinks that a coordinator is beneath them. But Billy Napier was a head coach. How'd that work out? Dan Mullen was a head coach in the SEC and had a lot of success. Now, I think Dan Mullen probably got unfairly canned, but how'd that work out? Jim McElwain, he was a head coach at Colorado State. You want a head coach. You want a head coach with Power 4 experience. You want the... How'd that work out for LSU with Brian Kelly? Kirby was a coordinator. Wouldn't you like to have Kirby? So that's the one thing I'll say for the Floridas and the LSUs and the Penn States that are like, we got to get a... Okay, fine. Go hire Matt Rule and tell me how it works out for you. We'll have the coaching carousel. We were going to do that today. We will have the coaching carousel tomorrow, where with LSU, Florida, Penn State, UCLA, Arkansas, Kentucky, we will go over Auburn. We will go over who they will hire, who they want to hire, who they should hire, and who they actually will hire. And finally, I got to say this. How about Vandy? How about Vandy on Saturday? And I know how to kind of cheat when I'm in Canada to watch things that are only really available in the United States. And I had to do that in order to watch Vanderbilt win the other night. But Vanderbilt, everybody is watching. Nobody is now assuming that, well, you ain't going to beat little old Vanderbilt. Everybody is taking Vanderbilt seriously. And on Saturday against Missouri, and some of this might be to credit Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz, but Vanderbilt played a C to C- game. Bad penalties, inept offense, and they still beat a legit top 20 team at home. And they did it by making a play at the end of the game to set up the game-winning touchdown. And if they win this week at Texas, where I now owe Joe Rexrode $20 because Texas is favored -1.5. If they win at Texas this week, then I think they are for sure going to the college football playoff, because they're going to beat Kentucky and they're going to beat Auburn. Texas, I'm not so sure. We shall see. Texas does kind of stink, but they do have a roster that is one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid rosters in college football. But I have two questions to ask, and I don't know the answer to this. Question number one, what percentage of Nashville is behind Vanderbilt? You know, that, again, somebody, and I'm not going to say like me because I grew up a Vandy fan and my dad's a big Vandy fan, but somebody who moved to Nashville and they're a big Auburn fan, and so they watch Auburn, but Auburn season's kind of, so now Vandy, and it's like, yeah, go Vanderbilt, go Diego Pavia, go Clark Lee. And it's not worth watching your team on the SEC network kicking us. So yeah, Vanderbilt plays Texas on ABC. Turn it on. What percentage of Nashville is quote unquote behind Vandy, is rooting for Vandy? That I'd like to know. And number two, when it comes to Tennessee Volunteer fans, I would love to know how UT fans really feel about the Vanderbilt Renaissance. Because I've talked to UT fans. Now, a lot of my friends who are UT fans are the normal, level-headed UT fans. But they say, I'm worried about Vanderbilt, and they admit to it. Then there's the vocal Tennessee fan, the Twitter Tennessee fan, that's on social media saying things like, little brother gets excited about a win over Missouri. Ha, 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 ha. So I ask this question to Tennessee fans. How do you feel about little old Vanderbilt being number 9 in the country, having a legitimate shot at the college football playoff, and maybe being better than you? Because when Tennessee got good at baseball, Vanderbilt fans absolutely hated it. They looked at it like, that's our sport, and now you hillbillies are taking it with your daddy hats and your Bud Light cans and everything else. But I do wonder, do Tennessee fans sit there and say to themselves, you know what? Good for Vandy. I'm behind it. It's been 200 years since Vanderbilt's been good at football. We've been playing football for 155 years, but it's been 200 years since they've been good. And so good for Vandy. And I'm rooting for the Vols when they play in Knoxville, but good for Vandy, and on they go. Or is it secretly like, fuck Vandy. They were little brother for so long, and now I can't stand it. That I don't know. Whitty says he's a Vols fan who roots for Vandy, says it would suck but would be happy for Vanderbilt to make the playoff. I think if Vanderbilt makes the playoff, I think I'm going. Joe says Vanderbilt might steal their spot in the playoff. I mean, it kind of feels like Tennessee's playing for the playoff this weekend. If we subscribe, and I do, to the belief that a 2-loss SEC team gets in and a 3-loss SEC team probably does not, I'm just saying. So good for Vanderbilt. And I do wonder how the city feels, and I do wonder how the Tennessee fan base feels. All right, let's get to some of your comments, some of your chats, and here at the end of the program, TDG says the Brownlee trade will be a terrible decision for years to come. I'm not the biggest Jarvis Brownley Jr. believer in the world, though he's playing much better apparently with the Jets. I don't watch their games, but he hasn't been penalized, and he's got a much better PFF grade. I'm not the biggest Jarvis Brownley Jr. guy in the world, but two things. Number one, he was starting at corner for you and had 3 more years of contractual control. So for you to give him up for a bag of peanuts means there must have been something really, really bad there. And if there is, it hasn't come out, nor has it reared its ugly head with the Jets. The second thing is the guy they got to replace him, 18 Armour Davis, he sucks. So I don't know what you were thinking, but the Brownlee trade, it's not the end of the world. It's not like you traded away Derrick Henry, but give me a break. You can't trade away good players for nothing. That's bad luck. Gamer says, Wild is the number 1 overall pick looking like a 7th rounder. Yeah, Cam stinks. Again, I think Cam's going to be a bust. I'm not saying he is a bust because that's too early to say he is, but I think he's going to be. Sanchez says, Cam is good at talking shit and not backing it up. Again, I agree. I did not like Cam's answer when he was asked about the fiery exchange with Mike McCoy after not going for it on 4th down. He's like, I'm a competitor. I'm always going to want to go for it. That's the time where you got to be a little bit more, as Colin Cowherd would say, quarterbackial, like presidential. You got to be a little bit more quarterbackial there. You need to not show up the coach. You also, when you answer the question, you say, yeah, I was really fired up and I wanted to go for it, but I know that Coach McCoy's doing what's in the best interest of the team. And so I know that he's got, like, you've got to basically say, yeah, I should have done that. Brandon says she, and this is in reference to Amy Adams Strunk, she doesn't care. She's more concerned with the revenue that the new up-and-coming stadium is going to bring outside of the Titans organization. I don't think you can say she doesn't care. If she only cared about the money, she wouldn't fire everybody every 5 seconds because then she has to pay them. And if she only cared about the money, then she would not have let them extend Callahan's coaches another season beyond this one at the beginning of the year. So I'm not going to say she doesn't care. I think she does care. I just don't think she knows how to fix it. And I think the things that she thinks she needs to do to be able to fix it are hurting her. And I think the people she is surrounding her with are hurting the ball club, and they need to change. And I'll call it out because I got nothing to lose. You know, it's no skin off my ass if Burke Nihill and Chad Brinker are mad at me. I would prefer they not be mad at me, but the results are what they are. I mean, I need new people talking to Amy because the people that were talking to Amy have not been helping the situation whatsoever. And Forrest says, sure, we will get rid of Chig for nothing too. Look, I can't stand Chig, but I do appreciate the fact that he can actually run and run with the ball after the catch. I have a feeling Chig's going to get traded for a similar bag of footballs like they've been trading in the Borgonzi Brinker era. And Chig's going to go somewhere where they're going to throw him the ball and he'll go run with the football and actually look like a decent player. So That's going to do it for us today. Like and subscribe. Tomorrow we will have the Coaching Carousel 1.0, where we'll say where all these college coaches are going to go, plus the latest with the Titans. I mean, I would say the latest with the Titans is they get set for the Chargers, but who gives a rat's ass about that game? Certainly not me. That's it for us. Like and subscribe, and also subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you can hear the show on the go. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow live, 2 o'clock.